Move on to the public forum, and I'd like to invite David Dunn, who'd like to speak to us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here and listen to my request. I've lived on Avonside Drive for 33 years in the same house, and as you'll be aware, 95%, I would think, plus houses have disappeared on either side of the river from the Darlington Bridge all the way down to Brighton. The bad news that comes of that is that geotechnical tests on the land show that the land where the houses are sitting is between 20 and 50 kPa and described overall as extremely soft. The concern is that traffic and movement are not going to help that land become stable. And to give you some idea, to put in normal foundations for a house at the moment, you have to have a 200 kPa as a minimum, otherwise you need special engineering foundations. So it's really to protect the foundations. The road as well is very, very damaged. The road is half green and then half red, and the half red part is very damaged, and it has constant flooding in very high tides or very high rainfall. I think the maintenance costs of A, repairing the road, and B, maintaining it onwards would be very, very expensive, but I'm not an expert. The issue has come up several times in the last couple of years with council about closing the road partially or fully, and it's never been resolved totally, I don't think. So it's not a new issue to you all. It's probably one that you've heard about in the last couple of years. I understand from talking to some of the traffic engineers that the road serves no network advantage. It could be closed and it wouldn't really inconvenience anybody to any great degree, because it's really just a shortcut between the Darlington Bridge and Wynonee Road. So we're looking at from the Darlington Bridge up to Porrick Park and then onto the Darlington Bridge. One of the solutions I had was that would suit everybody is to close the road on either side of the curb, the bend rather, at Avonside Drive, so that cars going forward will see the barrier on the straight on either direction and not go around the corner and have a crash. That will allow the footballers and all the people that use the park to be able to park there when there's not flooding going on, and hopefully that would resolve it. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Questions?
Avonside Drive. Yeah.
In which exact section?
It's between the Darlington Bridge and where my house is, or the road you mean?
I know where the road is.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
Where's my house?
Yeah.
Okay, from the Darlington Bridge going towards Porrick Park, just past Nairemu Street, where there's trees on both sides of the road.
Right, so that bit's green and
Yeah.
the bit over the road is red.
Just before you get to the first entrance of the park, 2 houses prior to that, that's where the red zone starts.
Right.
So then you have the one entrance to the park, and then round the corner you have the football fields,
Yeah.
and then all the rest's red, and Porrick Park, of course, has been destroyed.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Glenn?
Thank you. Thank you for this. Have you seen the new curb and channel going down in Avonside Drive?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
Looks lovely.
Yeah. We'll just need to ascertain how far that will go onto Kerrs Road as well, and further down.
Yeah, I think the trouble is that the Kerrs Road, I mean, because of the diversion, because of Wooden Road being closed, a lot of people were travelling down Kerrs Road onto Avonside Drive and then hooking back onto Wynonee Road.
Yes.
So there's a lot more traffic using that section, which is actually the red zone section.
Yeah, absolutely. Our street, Avonside Drive, has got an awful lot of traffic now, and particularly large trucks, because Woodham Road's shut.
Yeah.
So that'll be the case till at least the end of the year. So I wouldn't advocate closing Avonside Drive until all that's been fixed, so that people aren't inconvenienced again.
Yeah, look, thank you very much. I mean, that's just perfect timing, and
good.
It really very much appreciated.
Okay, thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right, so the next person is Bob Todd, Lynwood Pool. Hello.
Good morning, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the invitation to be here. Having had considerable involvement in the construction of the previous Woolston Lynwood Pool and the positive impact it had on the community, may I thank this council and the local councillors, Yanni Johansson and Paul Lonsdale, for working together and finally getting the necessary funding on budget for the Lynwood Woolston Pool. It has been a long journey to get to this stage, and this council should be proud of the fact of investing in such a needed facility in this area. It is pleasing that it's going to happen with funding and a firm commitment to build it. Residents in the community are excited and are keen to be engaged as soon as possible, as they were 50 years ago when the old pool was constructed. So I commend you and ask that you keep the momentum going with it as expressed in the annual plan. I urge you to keep the wider community engaged as to progress. Progress will help to raise the community spirit, and could I suggest that the obvious site for the pool would be the old reserves department on the corner of Smith Street and Lynwood Avenue. They have now moved, and that would be an ideal site. At present it's a real eyesore, and I know from experience that the Lynwood Rugby League Club are looking for a site for new club rooms, and a new pool and Lynwood League club rooms on that site next to Lynwood Park would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Yanni?
Just one, and thank you for coming in today. Do you have any history of like the old Woolston Pool or pool in the area? And if so, can you just maybe give us a brief history around that?
Yeah, 50 years ago, the owner of the grocery shop on the corner of Hargood Street and Ferry Road approached one or two of us and said that what was lacking in Woolston was a swimming pool. So we got many of the residents together and decided, yes, we would approach the council to build a suitable pool in Woolston Park. We put a proposal to council, however they demanded that the community contribute towards the cost of that pool. So we got together and raised sufficient funds towards the cost of that pool that satisfied the council at the time. Thus it was built, and in that time it was well used, but unfortunately at a period when the oil prices skyrocketed, the council claimed they could no longer afford to heat the pool, and as a consequence many people were not keen on swimming in cold water, and the pool became virtually redundant and regretfully was demolished.
Yes, 1 minute and 7 seconds to go.
Thanks, Bob. Has anyone actually spoken to the Lynwood Leagues Club about being involved, possibly involved in a co-venture you might be talking about?
I have, and I think Councillor Johansson is also.
And are they keen?
They are very keen.
And do you think they would be, financially contributing as well?
Yes, they've just received insurance money from their former building which was wrecked in the earthquake.
Right, and the Lynnwood School there, do they have a pool?
Sorry?
The Lynnwood School, do they have a pool?
They have a pool, but it's only
It's a little one.
a
So
small
they'd
pool.
have been walking distance to Smith Street?
So, you know, what is required is a decent-sized covered pool in that
Yeah.
particular area.
What I'm saying is, could Lynnwood School, is that walking distance to the proposed site in Smith Street?
Yep, only,
Right,
just,
so that could
only
be-
just down the road.
Great, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think there'll be quite a process to go through in terms of site selection. I know that for the Eastern Sport and Rec one, you know, a community, joint community board group was set up, a working party, and they looked at a number of different sites before they decided on the QE2 site, which should be announcing a contractor anytime soon. So this is a project that's on budget and it's proceeding. So
As I say, we certainly appreciate it and look forward to its completion and opening.
great, thank you.
And Lynwood have sent a letter to the council to express their interest.
Yeah, but I think there's a process to go through, and we do need to engage the community in a conversation about the best location. You know, I mean, I was in at the library in the mall, you know, and who would have thought that putting a library in a mall would increase the foot traffic by 30%? They had 1,400 people into the Lynnwood Library on one day. You know, it's just been dramatic. So, you know, I think talking to other clubs about what their needs for facilities are, that's absolutely the way to go. Good. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much.
Great. And now we move on to deputations by appointment, and I'd like to invite Tim Sinters and Warwick Schaefer from CCRU, re items 7 and 8.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. I'll pass you straight over to Warwick Schaefer, who's going to read out a report, and we'll go from there. Questions after if we've got time. Thank you.
Right, thank you for hearing us, and just before I start, I wish you all well with the re-elections. Hope to see you all back in a few months' time. We've got a couple of topics that are coming up today. One is the limb notations, and the other one is the Tonkin and Taylor rework, and you have a copy in front of you. I'm not going to go into every detail because I don't think there's enough time. So to start with the limb notations, this report should not be accepted by elected council. It should be referred back to CEO for further consideration and in consultation with affected community. Now this is the interim limb. We had a limb when the Tonkin and Taylor report came out. After the peer review, there was issues found in that limb, and so there's an interim one while the rework is done. We think that interim limb could be improved. We feel that the current limb is not clear, fair or balanced as it should be. A limb must be accurate, state the position fairly and must not mislead. Now, just to be specific, in the current limb, we feel that the words, "this property may be susceptible to coastal hazards," unfairly cast uncertainty over the property, when keeping in mind the peer review says things such as the hazard areas be variously revised, recalculated, discarded and or reassessed before they could be used for planning purposes. Another point, the words "that identifies some issues with the report." This understates the major assumptions and questions and minimises the amount of rework required to get the Tonkin and Taylor to a point where it can be used for planning purposes. A third point, Council is able and possibly required to consult with affected community when setting limb notations. We feel strongly that this should be done in this case and would result in a better outcome, and I've just put a small notation there to a relevant legal decision. Fourth point, the interim legal advice we have received suggests that given similarities with the Kapiti Ware case, it is not mandatory for CCC to refer to a discredited report on a limb. And there's some details there. On the second page, as a suggestion or a starting point, we've created a limb based on the Kapiti example that we think would be fairer and clearer. You have to imagine a limb situation where someone's selling a house and someone's buying a house. The lawyer needs to see it and have an exact and clear and fair idea without having to go to the background documents to really understand what is happening here. And it's quite important that a balance is struck between the buyer and the seller, and that's what we're aiming to get, and would like to work with you on that. The second topic I want to talk about is the Tonkin-Taylor report rework. The Tonkin-Taylor rework should not be rushed. The original Tonkin-Taylor report was fast-tracked with disastrous results. We should not do the same with this rework. Now this, just before I get started, this is not a swipe at staff by any means. We've actually enjoyed working with them, and as we work our way down a collaborative path, it's been very good. In fact, we don't actually have a path, we have to build it as we go, but it's quite exciting for the future, and I think if we are given time and space to work with staff, we can produce something that's really good for everyone. I'm just saying here that this work program needs to go back to staff, and they need to be given enough time to work with community to come up with something that we can both sign off on. You don't want us back in 6 months' time pointing out problems. Third point is we have time. Sea level rise is a slow onset hazard. We have time to come up with a good response, and we have time to work in a collaborative way. The work to be done now is a critical first step. Collaborating and consulting with community after the job is done is pointless. So we need to be working together on this from the beginning, and what's actually done is a critical part of that. Point 4, an independent expert selected by the community and representing community interests should also review and comment on the rework proposal. Point 5, areas that are at risk now, mostly, if not all, will be earthquake affected areas, need to be isolated and focused on. We have the zero sea level rise maps from the independent hearing panels. These show exactly where these areas are. We do not need to rush into signing Tonkin-Taylor to progress this. The key is that these areas need to be separated out from those that will only be affected by sea level rise. The drivers are very different, and the response needs to be different. Question 6, should Tonkin-Taylor be doing the rework? Community would be much more comfortable if it were not Tonkin-Taylor. The argument is that another firm starting afresh would dramatically increase the cost. This should be put to tender to find out. $190,000 to $250,000 is a lot of money, well, to me anyway. Hastily signing a contract with Tonkin-Taylor is unnecessary and would be a mistake. Oversight of the rework will be via peer review. Community need to be confident that it will be rigorous and critical. Community should have input into this. In particular, if Tonkin-Taylor are going to do the actual rework. With respect, the current candidate would not be acceptable. One example of a gap in the current work proposal is that sea level rise scenarios are too limited. The current proposal is only looking at 2 maps based on RPCs 8.5 and 4.5. We also need maps using current sea level trends to give a base case. We need to know what areas will be at risk if sea level rise simply continues at the rate it has over the last 60 years. Having this base case is essential if we are going to take an adaptive approach to mapping these hazards, which there is a lot of support for. Thank you very much.
Well done, 3 minutes left.
Yep. Do you want to say anything else, Tim? Or
No, just to, we left some time in case you wanted to ask questions.
Yep, sure.
There is one small point I should just add on the limb topic, is that there is a case, I didn't mention it, for setting the Tonkin-Taylor report aside while we do this rework. Thank you.
Phil?
Thank you. Could I just ask you, in terms of, so what are you asking should be, or suggesting should be on the limb at this stage from your perspective?
Yeah, so our suggestion, and it's just the suggestions on this back page here, I can read it if you like, The council has a report, Coastal Hazard Assessment Stage 2 report, that indicates that this property or part of this property may be susceptible to coastal hazards if, in a modelled worst-case scenario, sea level were to rise 1 metre over the next 100 years. Sea level rise is currently approximately 2 millimetres per year. So what we're trying to bring in to the LIM is actual context here, rather than something that's quite uncertain. It may be susceptible. Well, what does that really mean? It's quite scary for a house buyer or a lawyer potentially. We just want to make it more clear so you get a fair scope of.
Why would you refer to the current rate when all the science talks about the impact of ice melt and things like that, which don't affect sea level rise at the moment? I mean, but why would you make a reference to the current rate when it's the future rate that is the subject to scientific predictions?
Yeah, well, that future is very uncertain, in particular with ice.
Yes, but are you trying to minimise? I mean, when I looked at the actual wording, I wondered whether you hadn't actually gone a step too far, rather than.
Look, as I say, it's a suggestion, and it's something we should discuss. And all I'm really asking for today is the chance to do that, and that point may well be made.
Yeah, Phil.
So I've got a second question too.
Sorry.
Like, could you, you've said really, like, clearly the review of the Tonkin and Taylor report, other scientists carefully and critically reviewed it. So you're already saying that Tonkin and Taylor say should not be involved with the review. So where are you coming from in terms of your qualifications to actually say that they shouldn't be able to do this?
So it's not about the review. The review has happened. It's the rework to fix the original report.
So what I'm really saying, what are you basing it on in terms of, say, your qualifications, or what scientific evidence are you putting up that this group shouldn't be doing the job?
Well, as I've said, this is the things I can see as a layperson, and I am actually asking for, I think, point 4, that the community has an independent expert to look at this report and make sure that the rework is going to achieve the result we want. Absolutely, we should have expert opinion, not just people like me.
Thank you.
Yeah, Glenn?
What's your sense of where the community is at with coastal hazards? So when it comes to LIM notification, people are reasonably happy to accept. There's risk across the whole city in the inland areas, not only coast. So are you sensing, the community is happy to acknowledge that, but you're trying to convey some context around it? Is that?
Yes, we understand that council has to notify community about hazards, and sometimes it might not be news they want, but it just has to be fair and accurate for both parties, and that's really what we're driving for, and we don't think the balance is quite right yet.
It's not only what physically goes on it, but the process by which we land on that too.
Well, I think so, yeah. I think, this can be a useful contribution from community in many areas, and this is another one.
I guess add to that too, if I could. There's still a lot of uncertainty out there through everything, because there's no clear answer at the moment. So it reflects on property prices. As I said, the only people it really affects in the 18,000 homes is the people that are buying, selling, or building. They're the people that it really affects.
Property prices are increasing
property
in these,
prices
and
definitely shows.
Insurance is still available too.
Well, we've reached the 10 minutes, so I'd love to have a further conversation, but these things are rather restrictive.
Look, we
of timing.
appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
And all the best for next week.
Thank you.